Hello everyone. So today we'll be seeing how we can handle SSJS errors uh, in our code. But before that, just to let you know that I have taken 2 sessions with Trailblazers recently. So I'll be adding the link to those 2 videos in the description below, and I'll also add it in the playlist SSJS Simplified. So there I have covered very basic topics which can get you started as a SSJS developer. So please check that out. Just in like 1.5 hour video, I've covered pretty much everything that you need to know to get started with SSJS. And another thing is this, if you see this code and if you see this file, this is currently saved in Google Drive location, and I'm able to run this code in Cloud Page. So if I just refresh this page, you can see that I'm able to execute SSJS code within the Google Drive. I'll also drop a link to that video in the description as well, how you can do this thing. So please check that out. Now with that thing covered, let's see how we can handle some of the common SSJS errors that we face. First, I'll be showing you the primary key violation error that happens, which is when we try to insert a duplicate primary key in a data extension. For that, first thing is we need a data extension. So let me just show you the data extension we have. So the data extension name is demo DE, and we have 4 records already. And if I show you the properties of this data extension, you can see that subkey is the primary key here. And also another thing to note is email address is not nullable. So we'll be violating these rules and see like while doing an insertion into this data extension. But yep, we have the data extension. Now let's write the code to insert a record into this data extension, right? So for that, let me just go to Google and search for SSJS SFMC and click on the first link that we get. Now, if I go to the left side, just go to this first option of server-side JavaScript syntax guide, and I'll be using platform functions for this purpose. And if I go to data extension functions here and insert data, so this is the function that we would be needing. So it inserts a record into a data extension basically, and we have 3 parameters to be passed to this function. So here we have a name of the data extension, names of the columns, um, and also the values to be inserted. Just to let me just copy this code and bring it down here to better understand it. So we have platform.function.insert data. So that is the code that we need. Then this is going to be the data. So this insert data is the function name, and the customer data was supposed to be the data extension name, which is demo DE for us. So let me just replace this with the actual DE name that we have. Then let's just add only 2 required fields, which is subscriber key and email address. So only those 2 are required for now. So let's just add only those 2 values, right? So first thing is the sub key, so subscriber key, and then we have email address here. Now we need to pass some values. So if I check the value, the last value we had was A104. Let me just use A105, and let's name him. Okay, we are not inserting first name or anything. Let me just get rid of this name. And yeah, we are inserting subscriber key, email address, and values are A105 and jsmith@example.com. Okay, now let me just save this. And another thing that you will notice is that we are calling this function, and the return value from this function, we are storing it in this rows variable. Now let me just print that variable also. So for that, I'll just use this write function that we have here. So I'll just print it as number of rows affected, and that will be rows. So Basically, it returns the number of affected rows. So since we are doing a single record insertion, this ideally should return 1. Now, if I just save this and go down to the page and refresh it, here you can okay, yep, here you can see the first message, which was hello from Google Drive, and then it says number of rows affected was 1. So if I go to the data extension and refresh this data extension now, we can see that new record was added. Perfect. Now, if I go to the same cloud page again, and now if I refresh this page, what exactly happens? Now, if I refresh this page, this code is going to get executed again. So it will print this message first, and then it will try to add this same exact record again. So yeah, let me just do that. Let's see what happens. It is going to crash our server. Like it's going to say that internal server error, not crashing server exactly. But yeah, it's going to crash our cloud page, let's say. So that happens because we already have a 105 as subscriber key, and we are trying to reinsert the same primary key. So it is a primary key violation. But instead of giving me that message, that error message, it's just going like I won't really have any clue what went wrong in my cloud page just by looking at this internal server error, right? So for that, we need to handle this error. Right? For that, we have something called as try catch block. First, we have this try block, which I'll just write in the beginning. So it's always better to have try block in the beginning of the code. And I'll just open this flower bracket here, and I'll close this flower bracket at the end of the code. So if you have a bunch of lines of code where which potentially could throw some kind of error, you will add that code inside this try block. Okay, then we have something called as catch block. Let me just write it down, and here will have an error object, and here also we have a block. So the catch block is where you handle that error. So basically what happens is any code in your try block, if any kind of error happens there, it's just going to throw that error. And catch block is going to catch that error and execute any line of code that you write inside this catch block. Now, what do I want to add in the catch block? Usually we print the error. So to print that error, I'm just going to use this same write function. And here I'm going to say that the error is, and I'm just going to print this exact same value error that we get. So this error object will have all the information that we need to like kind of print the error or get some information or insight on that error. Now, if I save this page or save this code, and if I go and refresh now, uh, uh, ignore this hello world Google thing. Here now I'm going to able to see what exactly is an error. So the error is an error occurred when attempting to execute the insert data function call. See inner exception for more detail. So that's what it's saying. So first thing, let me just get rid of this error the Google Drive message. And now I'm not really sure. Like this message is not enough for me to exactly identify. Now I just know that it is happening because of insert data, but not exactly why. I don't know that yet. So for that, so we know that error is an object, right? So we can print full object or the JSON formatted object in a string format using platform dot function. Let me just type it correctly. Function dot stringify. Yeah, now if I pass the error inside this function, platform.function.stringify function, it is going to print everything inside this error object. Now let me just save this and show you what exactly happens here. Now I get the error is, and here we can see that it opens with flower parenthesis and it closes with flower parenthesis. So that basically means that it is an object. Now in this object, first we have the message property, which is the message that we get, right? And this is the message that we saw previously. This is not very descriptive. And then we have something called as description. So description is going to have a brief description of about your error. So I think this entire thing is the description of that error. Now this is kind of like not well formatted, I agree, but just go through it and you'll be able to figure out what exactly is the error. Now I can see that here it says that duplicate key value A104, and it says cannot insert duplicate key. So that means that, yeah, it is a primary key violation. It's not able to add the duplicate value. The value we were trying to add was A105, right? Okay, now we know that this was caused by the primary key violation. Now let me just change this to A106, save this code. And now if I go back and refresh this page, okay, now it is going to run fine because, yeah, it has successfully added a record into our data extension. Now let me just refresh this page or data extension, and yeah, we are able to successfully add this thing into a data extension. Now again, if I refresh this again, it should give me that same primary key violation error constraint, that, yeah, the duplicate key cannot insert the duplicate key. Yeah, this is working perfectly fine. Now let's violate another rule. So let's say I'm not going, so this time I'm going to increment this by 1, A106, so it doesn't throw the primary key violation. But this time I'm not going to insert email address. So let me just get rid of email address here. So yeah, we are just inserting subscriber key in this situation. Now, if you remember, the email address is a nullable, not nullable field, or it is a required field. Now, if I try to execute this code now, let me just save, and if I refresh this, it should give me a different kind of error. So it says that column does not allow nulls, insert fail, and it says that column was email address. So yeah, now we know that, okay, this is the error that has happened here. Now, let's say I don't want to print this message and all these jargons. I just want the description, right? In that situation, what I can do is I'll just get rid of this stringify, and now I'll say error dot error had this property description. Let me just copy this description and paste it here, and that's all. If I save this and if I refresh now, it's only going to print this description, no message or no jargons as such, right? So yeah, this is how we handle the runtime errors, or we can also handle compile time errors if you know what that is. But yeah, this is basically how we can quickly find out what exactly is going wrong with our code. And it is highly recommended to use try catch block in whichever SSJS code that you're running, so that it doesn't crash the code, right? And you get to know what exactly is the error. And this is very much important to be used in the automation, the script activity, because let's say if some kind of error is thrown and you don't have it inside the try catch block, then what happens is that automation activity, it just stops the entire automation. Your next activity will not run but if you have it handled inside the try catch block, then instead of just completely stopping the automation, it's going to handle it using the try catch block, and the next step of the automation will run. So that's why it is very important to use error handling. Now, now another thing that you will notice here, that we're printing the error, which is not really ideal because it's just, we can see that message only in cloud page. not really like we can't keep the log of that. And for that, it is a good practice to always log your errors inside a data extension. So for that, I have a data extension created here, error log D. So I usually keep these three key fields in my error log. One is source. Source is the location or the cloud page or the automation activity from which the error was triggered. The message will be the description of the error description that we just printed. And error time, I usually keep this as the date time data type, and I keep it the default value of current date, so I know that when exactly this error happened, right? Now, if I see I have 0 records here. Now, let me just, instead of printing, just printing, I can keep the print statement. I'll just add another insert data. So let me just add in an insert data command here. Now, first thing is the data extension name. Instead of demo D, it's going to be error log D. And here I'm going to print source message. So first is going to be source, and second is going to be message. Now source is going to be, let me just say that it is from error handling cloud page. And then our message is going to be error.description. So let me just bring that value here. Perfect. Now if I save this and if I go and refresh, yeah, it is going to print the error, but still I will have a log. I should be having a log of that error here as well. So if I do add record and cancel, it refreshes, and yeah, we can see that the detailed description of the detailed error that we get printed here, we also get it in the data extension. And here we can see that a source was error handling cloud page, and we also get the exact time when this error was thrown. Now, another thing that I highly recommend is to keep this message to the max length, which is 4,000, I guess. So this is one thing to keep in mind while creating this data extension. And another very important thing is keep all the fields as nullable, so that at least this code, which is in the catch block, doesn't throw another exception, right? We don't want this code to also throw the exception, so, or error. Like I don't want any error to happen here, so just keep this field also as nullable. So yep, this is pretty much how I at least handle all the errors in our project. So if you have any more suggestions, please leave it in the comment section below. And yeah, thank